Hello, and welcome back to my RimWorld tutorial video. This is video 6, and last we left off, we just got visited by some traders up here in the top, and we had just finished making our production bills set up in our workshop, and I noticed that I actually built last time a wooden hand tailor bench. I didn't really go over this, but there are different types of most of the production that you can create. There's usually a non-electronic version and an electronic version. So I made a hand tailor bench. I usually skip making this because right around the time I start making a tailor bench, I usually have electricity up and running. I'll keep it a hand tailor bench for now, but eventually we'll probably want to switch to electric tailor bench, and the only real reason for that is the quickness. You can work without electricity on the electric tailor bench, so it doesn't require electricity, but it works faster if you do have electricity. So eventually we're going to switch over to an electric tailor bench. In a bit, we'll be putting in a stove. We could be putting in a fueled stove, which just requires you to constantly input wood into it to fuel it. But we're going to definitely be putting in an electric stove. We don't have batteries yet, so it could be inconsistent because all we have right now is a wind turbine to give us power, but eventually we are researching batteries, and as soon as that gets researched, we are going to make our first battery and then make sure that all of our stuff is up and running. But for right now, I am going to have them keep going. It looks like they're just finishing up Inessa's bedroom, and that'll be great. That'll hopefully help her mood. And let's see if this has already improved. All right, so it went from, if you remember, it was an awful bedroom, and now it is just a dull bedroom. So we can definitely get that up. Once it's decent, it will give, I think, a neutral bonus, or maybe even slightly like a +1 mood bonus. So we want to get it up to at least decent, but we probably want to get it up to at least slightly impressive, because that will give a nice mood bonus, and we want to make sure that Inessa is nice and happy because she is being affected right now by the psychic drone. So we want to make sure to monitor her. See, if we see right now her mood's about to dip into the minor break risk threshold. So at any point she could be going on a mental break, and that's not great because Inessa is actually our probably most useful pawn right now. She's the only one that can construct worth anything, and she's also our main grower. Because of that, I am going to actually take her down off of plant cutting. She's still going to construct, but I want her to prioritize that growing as soon as possible, because we want to make sure this gets in, so that if she does break, the corn and rice can still grow while she's broken. Anyway, but for now, let's go and deal with these traders. So in the game, you'll get a lot of random events, a lot of visitors, and if a lot of times the parties that you are neutral with or allies with will send, they'll have trading caravans come around. And this one, I believe it said it was a shaman trader. You'll get to know the different types of merchants, but basically it just means that they'll have certain things to sell. It's a tribal group, so they usually won't have like high-tech weapons or things like that, but they could have a lot of useful things. They might also have some exotic pets. It looks like they have some cobras here. So that's a fairly, you don't see cobras very much on a temperate forest. So if there's a lot of opportunities to get things you wouldn't normally otherwise get. When you have like a trade caravan or someone visiting you, what will usually happen, and here real quick, I'm just going to allow these. What will usually happen is they will come and congregate somewhere near your home zone. I'm not exactly sure what determines it. They might go near a table, which is a gather spot. Sometimes, and they usually, wherever they do decide to hang around, you can probably be assured that the next time you get a trade caravan, even if it's a different faction, they'll probably hang around the same spot. And this will change as we grow our colony. I'm not really sure the mechanic that determines it, but it looks like right now they've settled right here, which is very convenient. Now, if you notice, this is a pretty big group of traders, but you really only trade with one person, and that's whoever has the question mark above their head. So what you want to do, trading, is you want to send your person that's best at social. So an easy way to see who's best at social is you can go to the work and look at the wardening. And so we see here that Maxie has a skill of 7 and Anessa has a skill of 4. Anessa has a minor passion, so she might get more out of this transaction, but in general, you just want whoever has the highest social skill. The higher the social skill, the better prices that person gets when trading. Now, if your person with the best social skill is injured or not feeling well, that can affect their trading ability as well. And it'll even give you a little prompt as you're about to trade with them saying, hey, this person is injured. They may not be as effective as you otherwise. You might want to consider using someone else. And then really you can just, have them trade with the person and see what your percentage increase in prices you're getting. So we're getting a plus 10% increase. That means in both buy value and sell value, I believe. And so I could cancel this and have, Anessa come and trade. And I'm just right-clicking and saying trade with the huntsman. And you see Anessa only gets a plus 6%. So we are definitely going to have Maxie come and trade. So Maxie, come trade with these guys and let's see what they have. All right, so there are definitely mods to help with this, and I am, I think, probably going to download a mod because right now this looks very manageable. But when you have a lot of items that you can sell, and then you might be working with a trader that has a ton of items, this is going to be a really long list, and it will get a little confusing who's getting what and what you've already decided to sell and not. But basically, the right side is them, the left side is you, and we have currently 11 packaged survival meals. And if we wanted to give an amount to them, it is considered a negative, so we're like giving away that amount. If we click and gave all of them away, it would show you how much silver you're getting back. So this is their silver. Definitely don't want to sell things so that they owe you more silver than they have, because they'll just give you whatever they have. It's not like they go into debt for you. You'll usually get a prompt saying, hey, you're about to give them more stuff than they can pay for. Are you sure you want to do that? Anyway, let's look here. I'm not really interested in having cobras. Pemmican is fairly good. It's like a worse version of a packaged survival meal. It's a food source that can last a really long time. It takes forever to spoil. It will eventually spoil, but it takes years to spoil. The one thing I am a little interested in is neutroamine. Now, we can't really do anything with this right now, but this is a very useful component in recipes for medicine later on the line. And it's usually available from most traders, but it's one of those things that when you don't have it and you want it, it's really frustrating. So I almost always buy neutroamine when it's available, because it's the main ingredient. It's the only thing you need to make penoxy. Wait, am I remembering that correctly? Penoxylene? What is it called? Hold on one second. Yes, penoxysilane. Sorry, I had to look that up for a second to remember. But it's basically a drug that you can have your colonists take that prevents a whole bunch of diseases, so they won't randomly come down with, let's say, the flu, which they always can come down with, unless they take penoxysilane. It will block a lot of those infections, so it's really useful to have. So I may think about trying to buy that if there's nothing else. They also have 2 herbal medicine. That would be good, but we have plenty of regular medicine. They have some psychite tea, which can be good for helping people's moods. Maybe we'll take a few of those, actually. And then I can tell Inessa to take a few of those when her mood goes down. Psychic Animal Pulsar. This is a really useful tool. Basically what you do is if you trigger this, every animal on the map will turn hostile to anything. So it can be a really good thing if you are, being raided or there's some sort of threat that you really can't handle. You could bring all your colonists inside, lock the doors, and make all the animals on the map go hostile, and they'll hopefully attack and at least help you out a little bit. There are some risks with that, of course, because once the animals are done being hostile, if the enemies are all dead, then they'll just be hanging around outside waiting to attack you once you come out of your house. It will eventually wear off, so you can wait it out a little bit, but it is a really useful thing. Unfortunately, we really don't have it is expensive, and we don't have the silver for it, because there's really not much we want to sell to them right now. Psychic Shock Lance and Psychic Insanity Lances are both good. They're utility things that they can that colonists can equip and use in combat. Psychic Shock Lance, I think, is a little bit more powerful. What that'll do is make whoever you hit with it will become unconscious. So it's a great way to, if you see an enemy that you would like to convert into your colony, it's a great way to make sure that they're incapacitated but not injured. It's possible they could get injured with this. All these psychic things have a chance of setting their brains on fire, which I know sounds really bad, and it is really bad. But usually that doesn't happen, and if you can just knock out the person you want to capture, it makes things a lot easier. Psychic Insanity Lance will turn the person berserk, basically making them an enemy to everyone, so they'll attack the nearest person. So you can make an enemy turn on their allies with that. Both very useful. Again, these are fairly expensive, and we don't have a lot of silver. So I do think I am going to buy some of that Psychite tea. Not too much. And I really want this Neutramine. Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to get it. You might be thinking, oh man, that's most of your silver. You're absolutely right. It is. But, not having a lot of wealth early on is actually very useful. The size of enemy raiding parties and stuff usually depends on your wealth. And the frequency of raiding parties will depend on your wealth. So the less wealth you have, and wealth isn't just determined by silver, it's also determined by, the things you have built and stuff like that. But the less wealth you have, at least early on, the easier it is to kind of avoid some of the big, more harder challenges. Now, again, we're playing on a really hard difficulty setting, so it's all kind of hard to negotiate a little bit, but this is what we're going to do. I'm going to buy this Neutramine. It's definitely going to be useful, and I hit accept. And right after you make a purchase, I always like to make that person, they will never do hauling. Usually, the trader will just immediately leave, and leave usually stuff that can you know, deteriorate outside, so I usually try to bring it in immediately. And Nessa, after you're done hauling that, I want you to also haul that, and then I want you to drink some, because that'll help your mood. Okay, the next thing we want to do is start getting all this stuff to allow. We want to allow, let's see how much wood we have. We are going to want to cut more wood. All right, let's cut some more wood here. Oh, one last thing about trading I forgot to mention. They'll stay around here for a bit. They usually stay for a day or two. So if you forgot to buy something or you wanted to process something real quick, cut up another animal to get more leather to sell, you'll have that opportunity. But if you're trying to sell something that you don't see pop up on the screen, make sure it's in a stockpile zone. And if it's not in a stockpile zone, instead of hauling it to one, make sure it's in a home zone. What it will try to sell, what it will account for in your inventory to be able to sell, is anything that's in a home zone. So if I have a whole bunch of silver that I've mined over here but haven't hauled back to my site yet, I could very quickly put it in a home zone and then go and try to trade, and all of that steel will then show up on the trading menu. So that's just a little tip to, if for whatever reason, if you can't seem to sell this stuff that you have, make sure it's in a home zone or at least a stockpile zone of some kind, and then it should show up. Thing about this is, since they're neutral, they'll be able to go through your doors and stuff, which means if you have your colony completely surrounded by walls with some doors, they'll be able to come in. And I don't believe they eat your food. Never seen it happen, but if you have stuff laying out here like this, veggies, if they have animals with them, their animals may decide to eat that. So we've harvested some rice, which is great. In the morning, I'll have them haul this in because we want to make sure that our rice doesn't deteriorate and we can make some meals out of them. Okay, the other thing I think I forgot to mention last video is we did set up this zone for stone chunks, but stone chunks are the one thing that you have to designate to be hauled around. Most things will be hauled automatically to a stockpile zone. Stone chunks are not one of them. So you have to select them and hit haul, and now eventually the colonists will come and haul this to our stockpile zone. Okay, as this is coming up, Guillermo, I think, is set to research. Yep, awesome. So we're gonna set up to have a cooking and a butchery. All right, going to production, going to electric stove. Gonna put the electric stove there. And butcher's table. Gonna put a butcher's table there. Another thing of production that we want to also make is an art bench. Art is one of the great ways to not only make a room beautiful or an environment beautiful, it's also a great thing to sell. If you make even bad statues sell for a really good price. That's a great thing to be making early on, that not only improves the mood of your colonists because they are happy that things are beautiful, but it's also a great way to get wealth and get some silver if you need to. Now let's look here. I told Anessa to drink that tea. Let's see if we can show. It may have already worn off. Yeah, it already wore off, and she has a little tolerance now for psychite tea. This is probably a good time to talk about the assign panel. So in the assign panel, you can then manage outfits, food restrictions, and drug policies. So I'm going to go over these really quickly and show you what I usually do with these. So Starting off, I don't do too much with the outfit requirements, except I want to make sure that colonists take off an article of clothing once it gets to 50%. So I will drag this up and say they can wear anything, but once it gets below 51%, take it off. As soon as an item of clothing becomes 50%, has 50% hit points, then it becomes tattered, and that gives a negative mood debuff. So that's the only thing I really do. Eventually, when we have designated range and melee characters, and we want to make sure our melee people are wearing certain armor and our range people are wearing certain utilities and things like that, then we'll make more outfits. You can make different outfit designations, like there's some preset ones, but you can make new ones and say, ooh, I want to make a new outfit, and we'll call it, you could name it after one of the colonists that is going to be wearing those things. So I could make a Guillermo outfit that only applies to Guillermo, and set it to whatever I want. But again, I usually only set it to this. I will eventually, once we have enough tailoring going on, I will probably set this, but for now they can wear any quality of clothing. And this is where you can very easily say, okay, you're going to now be on the worker outfits or whatever, but we're going to do anything. Food restrictions. Usually this is set to lavish, meaning they can pretty much eat anything, including lavish meals, which is the best kind of meal. It gives the biggest mood bonus, but it takes a lot to make it. We'll talk about the different meals as it comes up. But there's really not much I do here, except I usually do not want them to eat a few things. Don't want them to eat human corpses. There are cannibals. You might have a colonist that is a cannibal, and then you would allow them to. But I want them to say, under no circumstance will they eat a human corpse. Now, listen. Your colonist is not going to just munch down on a human corpse if it's around. They will much prefer to eat a meal and stuff. But if they are starving and there's no other form of food, they are going to eventually eat human corpses, unless you set this off. Because I have this, even if they'll starve to death before they eat a human corpse if you do this. Which I kind of want to do. I don't want my colonists to starve to death, but if I'm in such a bad way that they have to eat human corpses, then I'll change this as it comes up. I don't want them eating kibble. I don't want them eating raw hay. And the last thing is raw food, animal products. Don't want them eating insect jelly. Insect jelly is a great food source, actually. Because it provides recreation. It's kind of like a drug and a food. You get it from insects, from infestations, but I don't want people eating my insect jelly because it is a really valuable thing to sell. You can make a lot of money if you have a bunch of insect jelly to sell, but if you have this tacked on, this is also a high preference thing. It's considered raw, so there'll be a chance you'll get food poisoning because it is raw, but they like eating it. So I make sure to turn it off because as soon as I get insect jelly, my last colony that I had, I got some insect jelly and instantly some people ate it, which wasn't the worst thing. It's just that, oh man, there was like 100 silver worth of insect jelly that they ate, which I would prefer to avoid. The last thing is drugs. So by default, everyone's on social drugs, and this is what it means. So these are the three columns of dealing with drugs. So these are all the drugs in the game, and I can go through them real quick, but beer is beer. Smoke leaf joint is basically the weed of the world. Ambrosia, I don't know too much about some of these drugs because I don't mess with a lot of these drugs. Ambrosia is just a really good food that makes them happy and warm and stuff like that. These are kind of like crack and cocaine. Psychite tea is a mood-enhancing drink. Go Juice and Wake Up are kind of almost like being on meth. They'll not feel pain, and it will count as sleeping, so they won't get tired and they'll stay up. Phenoxysiline was the thing I mentioned earlier. It is a medical drug just for preventing diseases. And luciferium is a really cool drug, but it's also scary. It improves everything about a colonist, but they are guaranteed to be addicted to luciferium the moment they have it. So they will instantly get an addiction. And if they don't feed that addiction, if they go through withdrawals or anything, they die. So it's one of those things you only want to give your colonist luciferium if you have a lot of luciferium and you want to start creating super soldiers, which is something to do, but it's usually something you do in the late game. And luciferium is rare, so you want to make sure you have a lot of luciferium before you even start it on people. Otherwise, you have to just know that they're going to die, or you have to put them in stasis or something to prevent them from dying. Anyway, with most drugs, there is a chance for a person to be addicted if they take it. Some drugs, there's a chance for that on the first try. Others, it's more likely that they get addicted after they have an amount of tolerance to it and they still take it. To avoid getting addicted to drugs in general, this is how I set up my drugs. So they are allowed to take anything if they already have an addiction, so that they don't go through withdrawals. If you go through withdrawals, you have other problems on your hand because that makes them really unhappy and they're going to be mental breaking all the time. This column is if they can use that drug for recreation. By default, they can use beer and weed for recreation. I usually actually turn this off. I really don't want people to be using drugs without me monitoring it. And this is how I set up my drugs. So the last column is for scheduling. So I say that they can have a beer or a joint every 2 days. This is for these two drugs. That's if they only have it once every 2 days, they will never get addicted to it. So I say that they can do that. And this is kind of by preference, but they can only take it every 2 days if these things. So if it's on any, then they'll pretty much take it every 2 days like clockwork, which I want to happen on phenoxysiline. So phenoxysiline is, they only need to take that every 6 days. Phenoxysiline, the effects of it last about 5.6 days or something. So if they take it every 6 days, they pretty much have it in their system constantly. Again, we don't have any right now, so they won't be able to take it. But once they do have access to it, they'll try to take it every 6 days like clockwork. And this is where you can tell them what you want to keep in their inventory. Yeah, keep a phenoxysiline in your inventory. This way, if they're far away from the base and it's their time to take it, they can just take it. Here, for beer and weed, I usually make it so that they only take it if they're experiencing low mood. So if their mood is like around 37, right around the break point for most colonists, then I say, take these things because it will make them feel better. Same with recreation. Only take it for recreation if you really need it for recreation, if you're starting to get recreation starved. If you have it set up like this, they pretty much won't be taking these drugs unless they need to improve their mood or they're in bad sorts. This just prevents addictions, which is always something that's good to avoid. It also avoids, taking those drugs too frequently or without you knowing that they're on them. Because, if you get a raid and you need your colonists to be up and at 'em and you realize, oh, they're all stoned, that can be frustrating because you want them to be able to, help defend the colony. Now look here, we just finished our electric stove, but it does not have power. And if you don't know where your power is going, you can always go here to power and it will highlight where your power lines are. So we want to make some power conduit come down to this stove here. We don't need it for the butchery, but I'm actually going to create a loop here so that there's some redundancies. So if it gets broken here, it'll still route the power around. Again, I'll route it more once we have a little bit more resources to devote to that. Okay, I know I rambled on a little bit, and I wanted to get into hunting and talking about meals, but we'll do that in the next video. Oh, nice. The psychic drone has ended, so now Vanessa will no longer have that debuff. Great, so she'll be feeling better in no time. That's awesome. All right, well, there you go. Looks like we are starting to get this colony up and running. We're starting to get some food in. I'm gonna set Vanessa to all this. And yeah, next video, I promise we'll go over food because we are running out. We only have about, like 1 day's left of food. We are low food. If you look over here, this gives you a lot of good things to keep in mind. When winter starts coming, it'll tell you you need warm clothes. We are in a biome that has year-round growing, which I guess also means it's permanent summer, so our temperature probably won't get that cold unless we experience a cold snap. Anyway, I'm rambling again. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, appreciate the comments and questions in the comment section to the video. Please fill it out. Let me know what you'd like to see in upcoming videos, or if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But until next time, good luck out there, and have fun.